Yeah, I'm Greg Lord with the Maine Forest Service. I am the project lead for this FOResT online notification system. And before we get too far along, I'm just going to share my screen here, and I'm going to, somebody can just let me know that they can see my screen. I have the Teams window displayed here.
Your screen is good.
Okay. So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with using Teams, but what I want to make sure is just for everyone to save bandwidth, to make sure that your video camera is off. And to do that, there's a little camera icon with a little crosshatch here indicating it's off for me. And so you just want to make sure that that looks the same for you. If you can mute your mic also, that's the little icon to the right, looks like a microphone. Then that would have a similar hash mark across it to say you're muted. And what we'll do is as we go along, I'll pause every so often for questions. And there's a couple of different ways. There's a chat or conversation icon here. Looks like a little bubble, conversation bubble. If you click on that, it will allow you to type in questions below at the bottom here. The other option is to raise your hand, and that's just to the right here. There's a little, like a smiley face with a little raised hand, and you would just click on that, and then click on the little raised hand, and we'll call on you, and you can come off mute and ask your question. So, like I said, appreciate everyone having their cameras off just to save bandwidth for everyone. And to do that, there's just a video camera at the top right-hand corner of your screen there, and just click that to turn it off. And then to mute or unmute, just click on the microphone. All right, I think that is it. I'm going to go over to sort of if anybody has seen the videos or participated in any of the demos in the past, this might be just a refresher. But I did want to point out where you can get additional information from our website about filing a notification online or to complete a landowner report. So you'd go to mainforestservice.gov, and that's our homepage right here on the screen. And sort of right front and center, there's a file your forest operations notification or FONS online, and you would click on that. And it takes you to this page where I like to call it sort of the resource page, where we have a bunch of information about FOResT and using it. And probably the most important item here, there we have these video resources. And it goes from little short videos about how to create a user account in FOResT, down through completing a notification, as well as what we're going to cover today about completing a landowner report, and tried to really make these short videos 3 to 5 minutes about it. And it sounds like somebody doesn't have their microphone muted. Here's some background noise. So I'm going to demonstrate completing a landowner report in FOResT, and I'm going to be using the test environment. So it's going to look maybe a little bit different from what you would be using to complete a landowner report. But I just want to point out I'm going to be in the test environment to do this demonstration. So you would sign in to FOResT. With your email and the password that you use to set up your account. And this takes you to the dashboard. You'll see there's I got a few things going on here, but to complete a landowner report for an active notification, you would go to the section of the dashboard called My Active Notifications. and you would go to the notification you want to complete a landowner report for. And so I'm going to pick this one right here. And it sounds like somebody's microphone's on. I'm going to go to this notification and click the view link to the right of it. And that's going to take you to the summary page of this notification. And the top section is related to landowner reports. And you'll see here, the first one here, it says the 2021 report has not been started, and there's a button to the right to start it. And I do want to point out that a landowner or designated agent on a notification can complete a landowner report. And the key thing to remember is whoever starts it, either the landowner or the designated agent, they're the ones who would complete the landowner report. It doesn't allow for, like, let's say the landowner to start it and then the designated agent to finish it. Whoever starts it has to finish the landowner report. So I want to make sure I point that out. There's also some information here just below this little table about what the landowner report is, and what we use the information from it for. We have a couple of annual reports, silvicultural activities report, where basically we're summarizing harvest acres, tree planting acres, activities like that at the state level. And then we also publish an annual stumpage price report where we summarize the stumpage price data that we collect off the landowner reports. And these are the reports summarized at the county or group of county level. And then we also use that stumpage data. We summarize that, and that goes into the annual tree growth tax valuations. Is there any questions at this point? All right, so I will start this landowner report by clicking the start button here. And if you're familiar with filling out a notification, you'll notice we have sort of a similar step process here for filling out the different parts of a landowner report. Similar to the notification, we had those steps there at the top, so you kind of knew where you were at. And just like the notification, you can't jump ahead. It's sort of, you have to fill out one section and then move to the next one, and then you're able to move backwards if you need to. So this is the general details section, and the first question is, did your property or this property, was it harvested during the calendar year 2021? Yes or no? If you click yes, you're presented with some other questions. The next one is the harvest complete? Yes or no? And we're going to say yes for now. We're going to say it was complete. And then the method of payment or type of sale. There are three possibilities here to select from. Landowner did not cut trees but received payment from them. This harvest was conducted under a contract of logging services, or neither of those. And along the way, like filling out a notification, we have these little information icons. So we provide you a little bit more information on what we're looking for. And we're just going to say that the landlord did not cut the trees but received payment for them. And then the last question has to do with if any non-harvest activities on the property occurred. That would include like herbicide or non-commercial thinning or any tree planting. And we're going to say there was. And that completes the general details section. Are there any questions? All right, so when you've completed that section, you want to click the next button in the upper right-hand corner, and that'll move you to the next section, which is the involvement details. And the first question has to do was I'm not sure why it's not displaying here, but there's what would display here is the name of the harvester that was on the notification. And there's a couple of places I'll try to point out here where, to try to help you out, we've brought information that was on the notification forward just to help you sort of remember what was on the notification or what was intended on the notification to help you complete the landowner report. So what would show up here is the harvester's name or the operator's name here, and you would just say yes or no, they were the harvester. If they weren't and you check no, a little form shows up here, and to enter the harvester's name and address here. For now, I'm just going to say yes. And then the next section is management information, and it's just asking, was there a management plan for this property? And again, there's these little information icons that will give you more information of what we're asking for. And we're going to say there was no management plan. And then the next question asks if there was a licensed forester that supervised the activity and that had a active Maine forester license. And if you say yes, similar to the question above about the harvester, you would enter the licensed forester's name and their license number. And in this case, we'll just say there wasn't a forester supervising it. And then the last question in the involvement section is asking if it's known, were there any if there are forest products exported outside the state or sold to a broker for export, yes or no. If you select yes, you would enter the broker's name and their address here, and it actually allows you to, if there are multiple exporters, you could click this add another exporter button here and enter multiple ones. And you'll see this trash can little button here throughout the report that you just click on to remove one of those. And again, this is if it's known. And that completes the involvement details section. Are there any questions?
Yeah, this is Mike McGuire. I actually have a question on the details section, the previous slide. Mm-hmm. So I had a situation where I did a rehabilitation treatment where the wood was provided to the logger in exchange for basically rehabilitating the stand. Sure. So I interpreted it to be neither of the above method of payment. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, and I will in the next section, in this activity section, I'll show where there's a place that I'm kind of directing people to provide additional information if you want to, just to explain what's going on with this harvest. But in that situation, yeah, you would select neither of the above.
Very good.
Yep. And I'll point out, like when we first started, I couldn't click ahead because we hadn't finished those sections, but you can see I can now click to the involvement section because we finished that section. So then you can go backwards to the details. Are there any other questions? All right, we'll go to the next section, which is activities, by clicking the next button here in the upper right-hand corner. And the activity section is broken up into a couple of different parts. The first part is the harvest information. And again, this is where we've brought in some information from the notification. On the notification, it said that the total harvest area was going to be 150 acres. So that's just for you a reminder of what was on this notification. And down below are different harvest methods and you want to enter the number of acres that occurred. And again, there's these little information icons to explain what each of these methods are. And one of the key things in reporting here is not to report the same acres twice or more than once. So partial cut harvest, or what I tell people or ask people, you know, were the trees sort of when the harvester came through, was it they picked a tree here and there or selectively cut? This is where you would report that information. So I'm just going to say there was 15 acres of partially cut harvest in 2021. There was no shelterwood harvest, either initial or intermediate or final or overstory removal shelterwood harvest acres. And again, there's information about what we're talking about here for you. And then we also have information about overstory removal and how it ties into the clear cut standards here. And I can't remember if we've come across it already, but there are some links here. If you're looking for more information on MFS rules about forest regeneration and clear cut standards, you can click there to get to it. And you can also visit, well, there's a link to our publication page there too. The next part here is for clear cut harvest. And what we're asking here is to report the number of acres in each individual clear cut that might have been created. And to do that, there's this add clear cut harvest row here, and you would click on it and you would enter the number of acres of an individual clear cut. And again, you can add multiple ones just by clicking this add clear cut harvest row again. And then to remove any of them, you just click the trash can here to remove them. So we'll just say there was an 8 acre clear cut. So that is just the harvest information section part of this page. And then the next one has to do with if there was any change of land use. And so there's this drop down here, and it's similar to the notification. These options, if you were changing land use to something other than forest land, you could pick that here. I'll just say there was a 1 acre harvest for change of use to residential. And then the next part is the non-harvest information. And again, this is about herbicide treatments, either site prep or release. And again, we have a little more information on what those mean. And then there's non-commercial thinning and 40 acres. And then there's also a section on tree planting here. And similar to adding clear cuts, there's this add tree planting row, and you would click on it here. And it would allow you to pick a tree species that you planted. We'll say there was white pine, and we planted 5 acres. And I should, actually, I'm going to remove that so I can show you. There's some built-in checks here. The goal is at the end of this is that you would have a complete landowner report. So I'm not going to put anything in for non-harvest information for the moment. And when we go to move to the next page, you'll see where it will stop us from moving forward. And then the last section here, I think I referred to it earlier, is additional information. So where this is the first year out with this landowner report, reporting it online, there are a few bugs in here, and I'm going to try to touch on some of them. But I refer people to this additional information section where you can just type in whatever to provide additional clarification or information about what occurred on this harvest. So that's available there. And so that's the activities section, and I'm just going to click the next button here. And you'll see here, I don't know if you noticed it, but this notice just popped up and said there's basically you need a one entry in the non-harvest information section. And I don't want to get people too confused, but I'm going to jump back to the very beginning to point out why we got that message. So in the details section at the very bottom, there's this question about if there were any non-harvest activities in the property, and I had selected yes. So that it's expecting something in that section. That is why, jumping back to that activity section, that's why we have this message here. It's looking for information. So I'm going to add the white pine back in here. And then just click next. Did I take it? So let's put something in here. Just going to refresh my browser for a second here. Five acres there. There. Click next. Okay, and then that moves us to the stumpage. I'm not sure exactly why that hung up on us, but I'm going to jump back to the activity section here. Are there any questions?
There are a couple questions in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew asks, if a landowner lists themselves as harvester on the initial notification and a sub cuts the wood, do we list the landowner as harvester on the report?
It would be was it a subcontractor that
That cut
the
wood.
Yeah, it'd be the person who actually cut the wood. Because I think what would happen is in that part, and I'll jump back here to the involvement section where that question is. So it would, in that situation, it would say the landowner's name here was the operator harvester for this harvest, and you would say no, and then enter the person who actually did the cutting here.
Okay, and then the next question is, if we had some notification numbers that were open during the paper form, will these be submitted as paper forms this year?
Yes, those have already been mailed out. The notifications that were submitted on paper and approved or active, they would be sent and should have hopefully already received a paper landowner report for those. And remember, the first mailing out goes to the designated agent first if there's one on the notification.
That's it for questions in the chat. Michael, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you have a question or not.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I actually do have a question though. With respect to once you submit it, it's more of a comment, but there is no verification, no email verification that that I completed the report, and not an option to actually download or print a copy of the report. Is that something that will be an option in the future?
Yeah, it won't probably be for this sort of reporting season, but it's similar to the notification. It took us a while to get that print summary button there, but I think we'll have it for the landowner report too, and we'll get to the notice when you're done a landowner report. That it just sort of gives you an acknowledgement initially, and then when you get to the summary page, it notes that it's completed.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I see. All yours.
Okay. So the stumpage section is the next step on this path of completing a landowner report, and I'll point out now that this is prompted if, and I'm going to jump back to the details of the first section here. It's a combination of things. If you've checked off one of the first two options here for under method of payment or type of sale, and your ownership size is greater than 10 acres. If your ownership is less than 10 acres, it's going to skip over the stumpage section. And this is the, if you're familiar with the paper landowner reports, there's a short form and a standard form, and notifications are randomly drawn to send one or the other. And I guess we just, to simplify the process, we just said, okay, anything ownership less than 10 acres, we will just ask for the, I would say, comparable to a short form. So just that's sort of the background on that. So when you get to the stumpage section here, the first question is if you're reporting actual or imputed stumpage prices, and you select one of these. And just to clarify what imputed means, it's basically you're taking out, if the wood was delivered to the mill, you're removing the contracted service costs or the trucking costs and anything else directed to bringing the wood out of the forest, and then what would be left is the imputed stumpage price. So I know we added this question, I can't remember how long ago on the landowner report, the paper form, but it just so you understand what we're doing here. And it's our attempt to try to get at, standard or traditional stumpage sales are not as prevalent as they used to be. And so we are still required to generate certain reports that have some representation or approximation of stumpage prices. So that's why we're asking for imputed information here, or stumpage prices. And then the next section is the actual stumpage details. And there's some more information about what this section is about. And I'm going to try to describe it. It's broken up by the different products and their units. We have veneer in board feet. There's saw logs in board feet. There's pallet wood in board feet or in green tons. And the intent here is not to report in both of these. Whatever you have it in, just report it in one of these sections. You don't have to try to convert and put it in both. That's not the intent. There is similarly, there's stud wood in cords in green ton, and you report it just in one of these sections. There's bolt wood in board feet. There's pulpwood in green tons or in 1,000 pounds. There's firewood in cords. There's biomass in 1,000 pounds and biomass in green tons. And then there's this sort of specialties section, and there's options for reporting in board feet, in cords, in 1,000 pounds, and in green tons. So I just wanted to quickly kind of go down through just to show you what's in this section, and I'm going to try to slowly scroll back up so nobody gets sick from fast scrolling. So you'll notice to the sort of right side of each of these sections, there's an add row. So you would click on add row, and you would pick the species that you have for veneer. You would enter the volume to the nearest board feet, and then enter the price per 1,000 board feet. And then again, there's the trash can here that you can click and it will delete that row. And again, similar to what we've seen before, you can add multiple rows to each of these sections by just clicking the add row. If you had a different grade of veneer, you would just enter it as a new row here. I think on the paper form, it's paper, so we only had one line for you to report veneer, sugar maple veneer. So here you would just add additional rows for each grade if you had multiple grades. And that applies for all these here. Again, you click the add row. We'll see there was white pine saw logs. And I'm just throwing some numbers in here just so you can see the process. So there was some red maple. And then again, for pallet wood, if you had it in one of these in board feet or in green tons, you would just report it in that. I know on the paper form, I think I'd run into some, not necessarily in the pallet wood, but in the pulpwood section where the way it's set up on the paper, it's sort of tons and then 1,000 pounds, and some people were converting them one way or the other and reporting the same information in both sections, and that's not necessary. You just report it in one of these sections. So I'm just going to throw in some numbers here just to give you a feel for how the process works. And then I'll add some firewood. And this is in cords, so we'll just say there was 5 cords at $30. One of the, I mentioned there was a sort of a bug here, specifically in biomass. I've noticed that, so the species group are either softwood or hardwood, and probably the majority of the reports we get reported in mixed wood. So what I recommend for people is just to pick one of these and put in the information, and then back on the activities page, just in that down at the bottom, that more or additional information section, just explain that it's mixed wood for biomass. And then again, this is something we're going to be fixing here, but it's something I've noticed. And you'll notice again, there's some checks here. So I just put in 0.5 or 50 cents, and it's expecting a leading 0 there. So so just if you're entering stuff and you're wondering why it's not moving, there may be some notes down below some of this information indicating that it needs to be corrected. And then I'll just touch on the specialty. There's a few here that can be entered. And then if it's not, you just put other specialty and enter the information across here as well. And then you can delete those as well. Are there any questions on the stumpage section?
There's a question in the chat. Is direct delivery to a Canadian mill considered an exporter?
Yeah. If the wood's being exported out of the state directly from the harvest to Canada, then it would be an export, and you would put the the name of the hauler in that section.
Okay, and then for imputed prices, I assume you want mill delivered minus cut, skid load, and trucking costs, but not yard or road costs related to the harvest?
Right. Well, it would be, I believe so. Yeah, it would be whatever's after you've removed all the costs related to getting the wood out. And basically what would be left is the imputed stumpage price, or what the landowner would see.
Then green tons for biomass, is that the only option for entering mass units for biomass? I thought there were two.
Yep, there is. Let me get down there. So there's 1,000 pounds also.
And then you want prices for every grade of every species of saw log?
So there's a couple different ways. So I think in the past, we've suggested doing a weighted average, like just, and then entering it on the one line on the paper form. What I was pointing out here was if it's easier to just enter each separate grade in here, you could do that versus trying to calculate a weighted average. I hope that gets the answer.
That's all the questions I see, and nobody has a hand up, so.
Okay. So when you're done entering stumpage, you would click the next button here. Oh, and of course you have to, a little note here says price type is required. So we're gonna say these were imputed. And then, and then let's try to click the next button here and actually time me out. So I'm here. Let's see if that will go now. All right, so the last step here is the summary section. And this is similar to the filling out the notification, where this is just posting or displaying for you in one place what you've entered in the previous 4 steps of the landowner report. It does put the landowner's name. You know, it was harvested during this year. It was completed in this year. And then the involvement details, the activity details. And this is just, you're just kind of going down through and reviewing what you entered. If you find there are errors here, you would just go back to that section and correct it, and then just come back to the summary. The one thing that's different from the notification process is there's no need to check off each section that you acknowledged or reviewed it and saw it. It's just basically you're looking down through here just to make sure everything looks correct. And when you're done and satisfied with everything, there's this certify button here that you will click. And then you're presented with these 3 statements just to acknowledge just that, you know, the first one is that the information herein is accurate and complete to the best of your knowledge. The second one is you understand that once this is landowner report submitted, that changes can't be made to it. And then the last one is more to let you know and to be aware that your landowner report, your data for your report specifically, is confidential, and we cannot publish it unless it's in some sort of aggregate and doesn't reveal the activities of an individual person or firm. And then there's a link here to the actual statute that that does protect that information if you want to see more about that. And so once you've checked these 3 boxes, this certify and submit button becomes active. And so up until now, you still have the option to go back and change or update your landowner report. At this point, you would just click the cancel button. It would take you back to the summary page, and then you could walk back through these different parts of the landowner report and change them accordingly. But we're going to say that everything is good to go, and we'll click certify and submit. And you get a notice saying that it was successfully certified and you've submitted the 2021 landowner report for this notification here. And you'll click OK. And this returns you back to the summary page for this notification. And you'll see that we said the harvest was complete on this landowner report. So the status of this notification has moved to closed. And you can still go into that landowner report and view it. And I'll just click here, and it's going to look, it's basically the summary page. That last step on completing the landowner report is basically what you're viewing here. And then we'll go back. And I wanted to point out one more thing here. Once it gets loaded. So since this notification is closed now, you'll notice that the 2022 report and the 2023 report, because a notification is automatically active for 2 years, that we closed it out on the landowner report early, there is no requirement to file those reports in the next 2 years. And it notes here that the previous year's report indicated harvest as complete. So I just wanted to point that out. And like was mentioned earlier, or brought up, that at some point we'll have a print landowner report summary button here so that you can print this out. Are there any questions about the summary or submitting?
For the interim, is there a way for them to go ahead and somehow print the report or take screenshots or something?
Sure, yeah, and I'm going to show you, and I'm going to admit that I'm in the test environment, so there is a little bit, it's a little bit of a bug that you shouldn't experience. You'll notice I can't scroll here down. I think it has to do with the work being done on the test environment. The one thing that I found very handy, I use the browser, it's Microsoft Edge, and there's this add-on, and it's called Go Full Page. And if you click on that, it will generate, it's basically a screenshot. And if you could see the whole thing, and I can go back and I can show you probably on the summary page of the notification better, but it would basically be, you could save this as a PDF or print it out, and it's one long, basically one long screenshot. That's the best option I found. You can print it just by, go back here, and then in the browser, I think you have if you right click and hit print, it will also print it. I believe it will print it. Yeah, it'll print it out, and actually it does do it okay. It's not a real clean where the breaks are, but it does allow you the option to print it out. It's just it might be a little bit cleaner when we have the option to have an actual button here. Any other questions about that? The other thing I wanted to point out, and it's not a real good example on this one, so I'm going to go back to the dashboard and hopefully be able to show you another, I'll call it a feature that we have in FOResT and landowner reports. Let's see if I can show you on this one here. So this is a different notification. So similar look, it has the 2021 report not started and the start button here. But then there's the, I want to point out there's a 2022 report not started. And I can quickly go through and finish the 2021 report on this, but I want to show you that you can actually in FOResT, you can start your landowner report sooner. Almost, you know, when you get done the harvest, you don't have to wait for December 1st. I think initially when this rolled out, we had it, the thought was, well, we'll have landowner reports kind of turn on at the beginning of December, but upon further review, we're thinking, why do we don't necessarily need to wait. So to help people who, like, they harvest in February and they're done, they don't have to wait until December for to report it. They can jump right in here and when they're done harvesting and complete the landowner report for it. And I'm going to quickly, if you want to bear with me just for a second, I'm going to quickly do a landowner report here. So actually, I'll just say there was no harvesting in 2021 for this one. And again, you'll see, so if there was no harvest, it's going to skip everything and take you right to the summary. And the review is pretty short. So just give me a second here. I'm just going to click through here so I can show you what I meant by being able to report early here. So we just reported what happened last year. Let's say, okay, the harvest just was concluded. You can actually see the 2022 report not started, but you can actually jump right in here now and complete it. So I just wanted to point out that that's an option here that hadn't been available with the paper forms, where we would, you know, wait till the end of the year to send them out. So just something to be aware of with that. That's all I wanted to cover about doing landowner reports. I did want to take the time. I wanted to point out a couple of other things in FOResT that have been available. Oh, sorry, jumping ahead of myself here. I wanted to kind of go over some of the, just briefly on some of the things that we're hoping to have come out here real soon with FOResT. But before I do that, I just want to make sure take care of any other questions about landowner reports before I move on.
I don't see any.
Okay. So currently we're working on making the whole process from creating an account, completing a notification, certifying your participation in a notification, as well as completing a landowner report, have that whole process be able to be done on a mobile device. Right now, we recommend using a laptop or a desktop computer to do all that. We're hoping we have one more kind of session to go through. So it should be in the next 6 weeks or so. We'll have that in place so that the public can basically do everything on a mobile device. The other things after that will be having the ability or having the functionality when a notification becomes active, that it will email all the parties on a notification immediately. Right now, it doesn't do that. And then the other one would be the ability to upload shape files to meet the mapping requirement of a notification. That'll be later in the year. Those were I think the main ones that I wanted just to kind of mention that you'll be seeing coming down the pike here this year, along as well as other tweaks that we'll be doing, like adding mixed wood to the biomass section of the Landowner reports. And then jump back to what I was saying. I wanted to show you a couple of other features in FOResT that came about after we did our series of demos last year. One of them is, so I'm on my dashboard and under my pending notifications section, and I have a draft notification here, and you can delete draft notifications. I think when we first started this a year ago, that option was not there. So it's more of a housekeeping or keeping things in order at your end, is to, if you know there are these drafts here that you're not going to be doing anything with, you can delete them. You just click the delete link and it would just, ask you, okay, do you sure you want to delete it? And you would just say yes to remove it, and it removes it from your pending notifications. And there is no way to recover that. So I just want to point out that option. Another one is I have a pending notification that has a status of pending certification. And I'm going to click on the view link. Actually, I clicked on the wrong one. It was in a different account. But there's the option to decline it. If I didn't want to participate in this notification, I could decline it. And that's a functionality that's been here all the time. What I wanted to show you was one that I created, and I could withdraw. Let's say you have a notification and it's pending certification, and you're changing harvesters and the harvester hasn't certified his participation on the notification. So you can withdraw that notification, and it's there would be a button here probably right above the decline that says withdraw, and it moves it back into the draft status, and then allows you to make edits to that notification, including updating who's involved in it. And then you would recertify it, and then have all the other parties who might have already certified it once would have to go back through and recertify. Let's see. One of the other ones, I think, let's see. There's this, this is on the summary page for notification, and there's this print summary page, or print summary button. And again, this is look similar to, I think, what I already showed you. It just allows you to print the summary on out on paper. So that's I think a new feature that wasn't there when we were doing our demos last year. And then the last one I wanted to just point out was at the very bottom of the summary pages for active notifications. And again, I'm going to just scroll down slowly here. We have added a place where you can add amendments. At the very bottom here, there's this amendment section. And you would click this edit amendments, and allows you to add documents. I don't know if I can quickly find one here. I'll just add a picture here, and it uploads it to this notification. And you have the option of removing it or downloading it from here if you kind of forgot what this is. It allows you to do that. And when you add an amendment to a notification, sorry, I'm going to scroll back up to the top here. I just want to show you that the status of the notification has changed a little bit. it's changed it to active amended, or it should have. Let me just see if refreshing that one. Oh, sorry, it didn't. I don't know if it didn't take it.
I don't know if you hit save when you added your.
Maybe that's what. Yep. Okay. Let's try that one more time. Add a file, and as far as I know, there isn't a certain file like a PDF or an image. I think it will upload. I think pretty much any file type. All right, so the key part to this step is to remember to click the save button. So once you've clicked the save button, you can just download it. The option to delete it is not there. So apologies, I'm going to go back up to the top here. And now you'll see that the status has changed to active amended. And that's when you add an amendment to an active notification. The option to amend a notification, only that option down at the very bottom of the summary page, isn't present until a notification is active. So there's no way, like if you're drafting had a notification, you're filling it out and it's still in draft, you can't add, let's say, a map to it or anything like that. The option to add amendments is only after the status is active. It has a notification number, and then you would just come in here to the summary page, and I'm not going to scroll to the bottom again, but you would go to the bottom and add a file there. So I think that is everything I wanted to cover today. Are there any other questions?
Question in the chat: will there be the ability to upload shapefiles to more accurately notify activities?
Yeah, that's planned to be put in place sometime this year. I don't have an exact time. I know it's in the top 5 items on our backlog to get done here. So, but the plan is to have the ability to upload a shape file, and that would take care of the mapping part of a notification. You wouldn't have to redraw it on in FOResT. And I'm not sure what that will actually look like. I'm sure it'll be similar to this amendment process, but I'm not sure how it'll actually display in FOResT on the map part. So, but that's definitely on the list of things to add here. If there are no other questions, we can wrap this up. I hope this was helpful. We're always here to help. This is a new process for everyone, so we understand people getting frustrated with something new to do or something different. So and we're experiencing it as well. So I appreciate all your efforts and taking the time out this morning to attend this, and hopefully there was some helpful information here.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you, and have a good day.
And you'll post this on the website?
Oh yes, yeah, that'll be okay. I will.
Couple
share,
days.
Yeah, I'll share my screen one more time and go back to this resource page. Probably in probably the public demonstration sessions. It'll be down here somewhere. And I forgot to point out that down at the very bottom, try to keep up with the different updates that occur on FOResT. There's little sections here, so you can click on them to see, okay, what updates were put in place on June 16th last year and all the different ones. So we'll have another one here in the next well, next month and a half, about the mobile responsive part. So yeah, this recording will be posted later this week. All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day, and again, stay warm.